So we can get started. And the first item on the agenda is to officially add the agenda item to the agenda since it was late for notification. We only have one agenda item this evening, and that's to review a grant proposal from Jubilee Housing. And I'll project that when we get to that review. But first, do I have a second to add that to our agenda for this evening based on the fact that it's of no harm to the community to consider this proposal today?
I'll second.
Wonderful. All in favor of adding this to the agenda officially then, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Great. Wonderful. And I think we have Chris on as well. So I think we can jump right in. So we have a proposal for a $4,000 grant for the creation and care and use of a lending library for youth working with Jubilee, and then also for the creation, care, and utilization of a resident and community resource center. The project would start in January as soon as a grant was issued, and run through late spring. And I'll let Chris speak to this more in depth, and then we can discuss the application. I should be able to share my screen. Yes. Okay. I will project the application. Chris, please take it away and welcome.
Hi, good evening. Thank you so much, Ms. Serrano. I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak with all of you this evening. Thank you so much for being amazing commissioners in the community and supporting 1C. So my name is Chris. I'm the Director of Development for Jubilee Housing, and it has been an honor to work for the organization and to present this grant. The first item that we're requesting funding for is the Jubilee Lending Library. The Jubilee Lending Library is powered by Jubilee's Teen Center. The Teen Center is located at the Maycroft, and it is a program that is run by Emmanuel Bajobi, and is focused on empowering 7th graders through the age of 21 in not only STEAM education after school, but also emotional learning, and in particular for that age group, financial literacy, career development, as well as internship procurement, and pathways to college and further careers. The purpose of the lending library in particular is to bolster that program overall. That program has been in existence for about 7 years officially at this point, and supports a myriad of students, including 19 students through a Jubilee to College scholarship, but they don't have any books. A lot of it is being done through partnerships. We have a partnership with the College Board. We have a partnership with Jubilee's Leadership Council, of which they do career presentations from organizations like Heinz and Clark Construction. They just recently had a wonderful 4 weeks of career presentations with entrepreneurs, those who are focused on career readiness, as well as entrepreneurship, college pathways, and as well as trade school pathways. But we really want to inject we want to help the students in not only in presentation ways. They also have, we have a hybrid system and a tutoring system, a high dosage tutoring where the students receive tutoring 1 to 3 times a week. So we're doing as many things as we possibly can in regards to people power, but it would be great for them to be able to receive a myriad of books that would allow them to be able to learn outside of the teen center. So we realize that our community in particular is made up of those who have some of the greatest financial challenges. And while there are libraries that are close by, they're not actually that close. the closest ones are in Mount Pleasant. And so for some of the residents that are closer, that are in 1C, that makes that a little bit challenging. And then on top of that, what ends up happening, because they are lower income, if books are returned late, there's also fees that can be associated with that. And so we don't want these students to have to necessarily worry. Of course, we have to think about providing them with guidance for the future in terms of how they manage money, but we don't want that to be a part of the Teen Center program, that worry to be there. So the books that, and the library itself, we're asking in the request essentially for bookshelves and books that include nonfiction, financial literacy books, as well as sociology books, which are reflective of the population in which we serve. What you can see on Celeste's screen right now is a short list of some of the books, and some of them are great books. Do you mind going up, Celeste, a little bit on the financial side? I happen to be from the DC area. That's not really the biggest point, but one of the things that we're hoping to continue to impart to these students at an early age, starting at 7th grade, is financial literacy. One of the books on there is Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which you might have heard of, is one of the most renowned financial literacy books for anyone. And so you can, if you look at the short list here of books, these would be bought, as you can see, multiple copies as a start. This would really only be a start to the lending library. They would have access to these books and be able to take them home and return them accordingly. Do you mind scrolling, Celeste? Just so you can see some more of those books.
Yeah, just tell me where to stop.
Yeah, Kid Startup, How You Can Become an Entrepreneur. Once again, we're trying to empower these students from an early age in regards to investing and bettering their lives. Just as Jubilee is thinking about housing as the foundation for greater equity, we're hoping to provide that through knowledge. And then could you please scroll to sociology and history books? Jubilee's current population for the Teen Center is not only residents, but other residents in our buildings, but also residents in the greater community. The Teen Center program is completely open to anyone in the community, and as such, it has that makeup. Let's see. Currently, we have 52 students enrolled in the Teen and Youth Center program and 19 in the Jubilee College program. And the student makeup is, they're all Ward 1 students. They either live in that area or they live right down the street. So this is a really accessible resource for them. The population of the Teen Center is about 30% Hispanic, about 60% African American. And those are just rough estimates. They're closer to 29% and 59%. And so the books that we're looking at in terms of sociology and history are also kind of reflective of their racial backgrounds, as well as general history overall. You can see books like Young, Gifted, and Black, promoting high achievement in African American students, to the autobiography of Malcolm X, to A People's History of the United States, which was a book that I read in AP US history, going to school here in DC, which gives a broad history. And these, once again, are just a few examples of the books that we hope to have in this lending library, with this being a start. Could you scroll down, Celeste, please? Then you'll also see college, career, and life guidebooks. We have for a long time in this Teen Center program focused on college as a next step in terms of education. As I mentioned, we do have a partnership with the College Board, and we do also help students that are participating therein to also get other resources for sustaining the possibility of college, and helping them with FAFSA applications on top of that, and helping their families as well. And as such, some of these books that we wanted to bolster that, not only to be able to provide career guidance through mentors that are physically present and tutors that are present, but also through the books themselves. That way they can empower themselves in regards to doing college research. So these books are talking about college. They're also talking about healthy habits, like the 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens, Preparing for Adolescence, and It's Your Decision for Teens, A Common Sense Guide to Making Better Choices. All of these books that have been currently selected are really focusing on bolstering these young people's lives from an early age. Do you mind scrolling, please, Celeste? In regards to the goals for the grant project, our primary goal is to expand the capacity to serve and expanding the storage and furniture that we currently have in the lending library in and of itself. And also, as I mentioned, making it more accessible to the teens to be able to access books. So when we look at the nonfiction books that we have, those books are also reflective of what we're talking about. And we hope that all in all, these potential products will enable us to have a really, really amazing resource for the students. In terms of the furniture expense for the lending library itself, we're looking for 3 bookcases at $155.99 in total. So that's essentially the books and the bookcases themselves are the ask in regards to the lending library. The next part of the application was wait, before I go on, does anyone have any questions?
I don't have any immediate questions about the budget. So maybe we can pause again after reviewing the rest of the application.
Sounds good. The next part of the application centers on the Resident Resources Center. We currently actually have a resource center, and this request is to expand the resource center to serve even more. The Resource Center is led by Maya Gaskins, our Director of Resident Services. She has a bachelor's degree in social work and psychology, and also has a master's degree in counselor education and in community mental health. She is joined by family navigators Camille and Justin Jones, who are operating the Resource Center in coordination to impact households directly through a case-by-case resident management system. And not only residents, the Resource Center is also a resource for the greater community. The Resource Center is one of Jubilee's hubs for food security. We are actually a capital area food bank official site, which means that site is also serving homeless populations and other low income populations as well. And we enter everyone who is in need and who is in request of these free services into this case management family navigation system, which enables them to create a goal system getting from point A to point B. We don't say that we're trying to get them from $100 to $500. Point A to point B could mean a myriad of things, and it's very focused on the individual. And it's based off of American psychologist Abraham Maslow's theory on the hierarchy of needs. So thinking about physical needs, mental needs, food needs, through this series process, of which it was attached to the document that I would appreciate you being able to review as well as you have time. In regards to the Resource Center itself, currently we are requesting items to make it more feasible to continue to do these services. Our resident services has always been driven by resident need first and foremost. During this very uncertain COVID era, the voices of the community have been especially loud in regards to the needs that they have. And we have been meeting that need. And as we're meeting that need, we realize that we need to bolster the space to accommodate. And that is in storage, that is in having tables and chairs, more chairs, and closets to accommodate clothing, more clothing. And when I say storage, I mean storage for food. Since that is a capital area food bank site, we give out hundreds of meals a week, over 100 loaves every week, in fact, of bread on top of that. And we serve about 40 individuals per week in the Rouse Room, which is located at the Ritz apartment building, which falls directly in 1C. And that takes place on Mondays and Wednesdays in particular. So the request for the resource center is really about continuing to meet residents in 1C, their needs, and giving a platform for them to have more space to be able to have conversations. Camille and Justin, who joined Maya's team, are new additions who literally were hired in the last 2 weeks, especially to meet that need, as I visually saw a myriad of people coming to the resource center for drop-in hours from the time they opened to past the time that they closed. So this resource center request is really to add on to our capacity, our personnel capacity request, or personnel capacity increase that we've already done so that we can serve more people. Are there any questions in that regard?
Thanks so much for walking us through all of that. That was a really helpful overview of the application. I'll let the other commissioners ask questions as well. I know we discussed this by email, and I appreciated you going into some details on the library and why it wouldn't be a duplicative service, mainly because this is something we know OANC requires for the grants. And we have shared this application with them, haven't yet heard back their review as to whether or not it's an allowable use of funds or not. But was wondering if you could just share a little more about this in terms of the youth who are benefiting, that this isn't, they don't have access to these books and these resources from their school libraries, and you have staff who've engaged with them and asked why they're not able to access books at Mount Pleasant, or why they're less likely to use that resource. That's where this ask is coming from, I assume.
So Jubilee's mission is to provide deeply affordable housing in thriving, resource-rich neighborhoods with on-site and nearby supportive services and resources. So first and foremost, we are trying to bolster the lending library so that the residents that are in the direct vicinity have the closest point to be able to access these books. Even today, getting some residents from Adams Morgan to Columbia Heights, many of these students' guardians have some mobility issues, which is part of our population need as well. So keeping it extremely hyper local is one of the primary focuses. The second, as I mentioned, was because we did not want to continue to add on to the burden through the penalties that could potentially occur through the public library. In Jubilee's houses in particular, or residences, our apartments are reserved, 2/3 of them are reserved for households that make 30% of area median income, and 1/3 are reserved for households that make 60% of area median income. The closest schools are H.D. Cook, which is a Title I school, Bell Multicultural School, and when you ask Celeste in regards to why those sites would not be better places to potentially receive books, because of the resources that these schools have, they particularly have fewer resources than some other districts in the city. As such, we are hopeful that by presenting this resource more directly through these after-school programs that are free, which are populated not only in person, but through virtual interactions, that we give teens a more direct resource that they don't have to have any fear in even returning. Even though it is a lending library, and we are going on the platform that we are trying to create resources that people can hold on to. We are in the process of creating a system in regards to how the lending library would happen. Of course, because this project starts in January, and we are hopeful for funds through 1C. We are definitely considering how we can empower the teens in a way that makes them want to learn. And so that's why this request is so important.
Thank you. I think that's really helpful context, particularly around the mobility issues. That's a great point. And last question before I turn it over to my fellow committee members. Thank you so much for adding the detail on the number of residents who would benefit under the specific programs. Are you able to estimate how many of these would be 1C residents specifically, or how many 1C residents specifically are currently benefiting?
I can provide that information now that request is there. Generally, that information has not been collected fully because our program is not only for residents of Jubilee. We can easily pull the information for the residents of Jubilee, but it's not only residents of Jubilee. So I can pull the information in regards to the addresses as they're provided.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful context. I mean, assuming this goes before the full commission in January, I think that'll be a question some of the other commissioners would like to understand better too. Committee members, questions?
I don't really have questions. Just comment. I think this is all really great. Two things. I'm a little concerned with just OANC and their reply back to it, but hopefully that won't be a burden that we can't get over. And then also just looking at the books, one thing you might think about doing is asking community members as well for use copies of some of these books, because just looking at those titles, I bet there might be a few that people would be willing to donate as well to this really great cause. But other than that, I think this is a great proposal and has my support.
Yeah, I have similar thoughts. And I think you've made a good case that you're not like actually duplicating something that exists. You're filling a gap, but it's not entirely up to us to decide that, unfortunately. A couple of questions, and forgive me, please, if I'm overlooking something or misheard. The library itself, like physically, would be open to whomever would want to go into it, or is there some sort of restriction on who has access to the physical space and books? I think you might have said it was open, but I just want to clarify that.
So it's not necessarily just a literal open door. The Teen Center serves 4 days a week after school. And so anyone who is a participant in the Teen Center program would have access, and the access is open to residents in Jubilee as well as residents in the greater community. All of the students, what I can tell you, they're all Ward 1 residents. I would have to get back, as Celeste mentioned, in regards to their exact addresses.
That's perfect. And a couple other things, some of them out of curiosity, if anything. Do you have any like ambitions of having electronic books or anything that's not physical hard copies as a part of your collection?
So that was one of the reasons why the lending library was actually being created, because a lot of our materials are all digital. And we felt that, you know, while we are moving into a digital age, and we have tried to bolster that in the community by doing things like providing computers to families for the first time. This year alone, we donated 15. We felt like there is power in, there's power in having books in particular, being able to transport a book, especially since what you just brought up, there's still members in the community, while they do have access to computers during the school year. Now that we're going, well, we all don't know what's going to happen with Omicron,
Yes.
but during COVID, when computers were provided by schools, they had to be returned during the summer because school wasn't in session, which meant that some of the digital learning that students were doing at home, they lost all of that during that time. And so having physical books takes out that element of not having a computer. So that was one of the things. Hold on one second. I think one of my colleagues is on the call and and would love to respond to the question around the lending library and the opportunity. She said that she raised her hand.
Yep, I'm promoting her right now.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Hi, thank you, Chris. This is great. Hi, everybody. Rebecca Ely with Jubilee as well. So I just wanted to add, as Chris mentioned, the Teen Center is 4 days a week after school center for kids. And as a parent, I think, you know, you want your kids to have access to books wherever they are. And so having these resources that really support the curriculum that we're providing at the center is really significant. So even though there's a library, you know, no, not so far away, and there's libraries at their schools and things like that, if we're talking to them about financial literacy, we can say, go get this book or look at this book and take this with you. Or if they're asking questions around entrepreneurship, there's a book there for that. So I feel like it not only is going to provide a resource that maybe is not as easy to access, there's barriers to it, but also it's going to improve the Teen Center program and our curriculum. So I just wanted to add that perspective because I think it's going to enhance what we can provide. And as we get past COVID, we hope to grow the program to a larger scale. The space can handle more kids if we're able to, you know, grow beyond COVID safety measures too. So it'll only get more impactful as time goes on.
Thanks. That helps. I have two more questions too, but not for you. That helps because I mean, I've known enough librarians. I'm just thinking of all the conversation I've had about how just like the physical locale of where you're accessing information is a huge part of the learning experience, and tying that into housing, all these other things. I think that makes it pretty unique and really special. So that's cool. Two other things for whoever wants to answer, I guess. One, like, forgive me if I'm just overlooking something obvious. The cost for the books were all listed, I think, directly from the Amazon prices, but I didn't see any shipping prices. Is that something that would be free shipping through maybe a Prime account or something, or is that something that needs to be incorporated?
We currently have a corporate Amazon.
I figured, yeah, I just want to make sure.
Yeah. And we could get them somewhere else, but I think we just, for the budget's sake, we were just
Totally
building it there.
That's great, like amazing line item breaking it down. The only other question I have, and it's not really, it's just kind of out of curiosity because I think that kind of like curating this just from the professional side or the staff side has value in and of itself. I'm also curious because I think the list of books looks amazing, but I'm also not a seventh grader. Were any seventh graders or just like middle schoolers consulted for either saying what types of books or specific titles they'd like, or like looking at this list and saying if they had legitimately have interest in reading it? Not to say that they wouldn't realize, like, could be convinced down the future, but I'm just curious if that type of conversation never occurred.
What I can say on that topic in particular is that our senior manager of the Teen Center, Emmanuel Bajobi, has a very close relationship with the students. And even the development of the program as it is right now has been very much student driven. In regards to the research that was done in procuring this list of books, it was mostly done through the auspices of educational professionals like Emmanuel and another staff member, Ganea, in regards to their teaching backgrounds and how they would want to bolster the program and the curriculum as it stands right now with more in-hand resources that they could be able to take instead of all of the digital resources that we also have at our fingertips when we have computers. The Teen Center does have a computer lab so that they can have that access as well as tutoring rooms. And as Rebecca mentioned, one of the things that we are hopeful to do is to bolster the program in and of itself with some of these resources more directly.
Perfect. Well, I'm done. Thank you so much for listening to all my questions.
Thank you.
Questions from other commissioners, members of the public? Okay, not seeing any hands up or anyone coming off mute, so assume no other questions or concerns. Thank you both for covering all of this. I think it's a very thorough application, and appreciate you going through the explanation of the existing resources and how this fills a gap. I think it sounds like a great additional resource to the community. Completely agree with your perspective that you can't make books too accessible, can't have too many. So I think that's a great use of the grant funding potentially. It would be helpful to have those numbers on 1C residents, and
Yes.
we will need to get ANC review of this. We've heard from Shanette that she's reading through it. That'll be important before there's any full commission review in January. But based on everything we've heard and seen here today, I'm very comfortable and would like to motion to have this sort of preliminarily approved by the PSC committee and then go before the full commission at the January 5th ANC meeting.
Second.
Awesome. So all in favor of advancing this to the full ANC meeting in January, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Wonderful. So we will see one or both of you, Rebecca and Chris, in January. Assuming we do hear from OANC beforehand, we do need to have that approval from them before we take a vote from as the full commission. And it'll be a very similar discussion as what we've had today. The commissioners will have had the application in advance. We'll do a brief presentation, and then there'll be questions from the commissioners and then from the public. And then we'll take a vote. But happy to answer any questions you have about the process in the meantime as well. And if we hear any specific questions from OANC, we'll be in touch to see if we can adjust the application.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you for the opportunity to be able to go back and provide a little bit more information to make the application stronger. Thank you to all of the commissioners for, once again, all of your service to the community. And we look forward to being able to compiling this information and answering your questions and OANC's questions accordingly.
Thank you both for joining before a holiday weekend and for preparing such a great application. We'll look forward to talking again in the new year.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thanks
much.
for the opportunity.
Good night.
Bye now. Good night.
Good night. That's it for our agenda. Have a great holiday if you're celebrating.
Okay. Thank you.